So here's a cool story of how two parents chose to inspire their child's curiosity this summer. The parents signed up to learn calculus and Spanish at ixl.com/Kirk to support their kids taking a class over the summer. I love this. You are learning right alongside your child. They can see you wrestling with ideas, being curious, and at times asking them for help. It's awesome modeling for your kids, and it makes it feel like learning is a family adventure, not just something you make them do. IXL is an award winning learning platform with an easy to navigate layout that uses interactive practice and step by step video tutorials that make it perfect for relaxed summer learning. So, what class are you going to take this summer? Make an impact on your child's learning. Get IXL now. Calm Parenting Podcast listeners get an exclusive 20% off an IXL membership when you sign up today at IXL.com/Kirk. Visit IXL.com/Kirk to get the most effective learning program at the best price. So, how many of you can relate to this mom? She said, I not only have to manage the emotional temperature of the home, but my own internal temperature fluctuations. So, I took a chance and I tried the Cozy Earth bamboo sheets and pajamas. Total game changer for me. No more night sweats, much deeper sleep. I wake up feeling refreshed. We love hearing that because that's our experience with Cozy Earth. Incredibly breathable, heavenly soft, cooling, and great quality. Cozy Earth gives you a 10-year warranty and 100 nights of hassle-free returns on bedding. During the hot summer, stay cool all day and night with Cozy Earth temperature-regulating bamboo shorts. I love these shorts. Tees, PJs, sheets, and their new beach towels. Cozy Earth is made from viscose from bamboo, breathable, soft, and built for summer. So head to CozyEarth.com. Use my code CALM for an exclusive 20% off. CozyEarth.com. Use code CALM for 20% off. And please tell Cozy Earth the Calm Guy sent you. Family life is so much busier these days than it used to be. What if you had an assistant coach who could manage all the details for you? Well, that's what SKYLIGHT Calendar does. SKYLIGHT Calendar syncs seamlessly with all of your calendars, so you can relax knowing all the details of your family schedule are visually displayed in one place with different colors for each family member. That means less stress, no more worrying about forgetting something important. Import a month of your kid's sports schedule in a snap. SKYLIGHT's free mobile app updates instantly, keeping the whole family in the loop. Try it for 4 months. If you're not 100% thrilled, you can return it for a full refund, no questions asked. Families are better when they're working together. Right now, SKYLIGHT is offering our listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendars by going to myskylight.com/parenting. Go to myskylight.com/parenting for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. That's myskylight.com/parenting. I want to give you options so you don't have to choose between being a tyrant and a pushover in daily life. How can you use a more tough approach without feeling guilty? When do you give kids some leeway without creating an entitled child? How can you help a child not get taken advantage of by a sibling? How can you get kids to listen and do chores without endless consequences? I want to give you scripts and 5 options that work. And I want to share an amazing story about s'mores that will resonate with every parent who's ever been judged by family because you have a strong-willed child. So that is what we're going to discuss on today's episode of the Calm Parenting Podcast. Welcome. This is Kurt Barton. I'm also host of the PDA Parent Podcast. You can find that at celebratecalm.com. So much good positive feedback from people who've taken advantage of the Christmas and July sale, so we're extending it. Plus, my mom absolutely loved Christmas, so I know she'd love this idea. So, to demonstrate a variety of discipline approaches, I'm going to use chores as a backdrop for consistency. But even if you don't struggle with chores, I think you will find this helpful because we can apply these different strategies to all kinds of different situations. So, I want to begin with a tough approach. Look, I like firm, no nonsense approach because it's sometimes necessary and it's compassionate. I don't make things personal. I don't create drama. I don't talk a lot. So let's say kids are refusing to do chores and I say, hey, every day I ask you to do 3 chores. In return, I run 3 services: a meal service, a taxi service, a laundry service, among 37 other things you do as parents. So here's how life is going to work in our home from now on. If you don't do your chores, my services begin to shut down. And your kids are going to say, "Seriously, you're not going to take me to my soccer game?" And my response is short and sweet. Well, try me. This is just how it works from now on. You do your chores, I run my services. Well, but then I won't make it to my soccer game, and then my coach is going to be upset because I let my team down. Well, I know you will. And then you'll have to explain to your coach that you missed your game because you didn't do your chores at home. And please hear the tone. I'm not creating drama. I'm not being snotty or resentful or vindictive. You know what? After all I do for you, you can't even, when I was a kid, we got up at 4 a.m. to milk the cows. None of that. And none of this. Kids, it's really important that children learn how to contribute to the family home. We all have our, no, no, none of that. Please stop with those annoying lectures. Your kids already know this. They just want to skate by, doing as little as possible because that's human nature. Your job isn't to lecture or convince your kids. It's just to be decisive and to take action. I just like the tone. Hey, this is the way things roll in our home. It's kind of like with video games. Hey, this is how your video game works. Like if you lose, it starts over the game. It doesn't go on and on. This is just how I roll. Look, if you're doing too much for your kids, well, that's your issue. So apologize and then reset expectations. But don't expect your kids to say, "Mother, Father, we've determined that you do way too much for us, and we don't want to be entitled children. So could you please give us more responsibilities?" Look, that's not going to happen. And for many of us, this is a childhood pattern. Many of you were ultra responsible as kids because what did you learn? Well, when I'm really responsible, then my mom or my dad gives me extra attention and they accept me. Well, and that served you really well in your professional life because you're very responsible and conscientious. And I know a lot of nurses and social workers have this kind of background. And you've held your family together this way. But now it sabotages your relationships and your own emotional health from carrying this burden. So be kind and generous to yourself now. Look, in some ways, doing too much for your kids can be a manipulative pattern. See if this makes sense. Because I do so much for you, you owe me. You owe me to do this in the house. You owe me to behave a certain way, to get good grades. See, that's not healthy. That's the flip side of what I learned, which is the my where highway fear and intimidation approach. Both of those are manipulative. If you don't do what I tell you to do, I'm going to punish you or guilt trip you. You don't want either of those patterns in your life. So apologize to your kids for doing too much and begin actively turning over more responsibility to them. I know, and look, I do this a lot. If you have not listened to PDA Parent Podcast, man, in the PDA world, it is all about, all it is kind of sometimes is like, well, just give kids accommodations. Accommodations. Like, no, I want to give kids tools because I believe they are capable of doing more. So look that up. It's really good. So I know we say this is kind of like the tough approach, but I see it as being very compassionate because you are being very clear, letting your kids know this is how the world works, which is based on reciprocity and being generous to others. That's a kind form of discipline because you're preparing them for the real world and you're not making it personal or being mean. But here's the big key to good discipline. Just do what you said you were going to do. If you listen to the updated Discipline That Works program, because in that Calm Parenting bundle, I go through the programs on a regular basis and I update them with new ideas and they automatically go into the app. So they're automatically updated. Well, you'll hear some really good language because people say, usually they'll say, "Oh, you just need to enforce your consequences."
But I prefer to say, "No, I'm just keeping my promise to you. I promised you this would be the outcome if you made this choice, so I just keep my promises." It speaks of personal integrity, so your kids can count on you. Hey, when I tell you something, I want you to trust that I simply do what I say without drama or lectures or guilt trips. Begin making that switch. By the way, I also like the word outcome. Hey, this is just the outcome. Here's what happens. I like that better than here's the consequence of your action. I kind of want to stop here because that's a great challenge for the next 2 weeks for you to implement. Here's one more example of taking a slightly tougher approach. Saturday morning comes and your kids are building with Legos or they're on their screens enjoying a carefree morning. And you say, "Hey guys, this week we asked you to do X and Y and that didn't get done. So, no fun around here until those responsibilities are taken care of." I used to call it kind of like declaring martial law in my home. You're just being decisive, and your kids will hem and haw and complain and negotiate and walk around with sagged shoulders as if life is so hard. Just smile. That's a normal dance of parenting. Hey guys, you can complain and be miserable for the next 3 or 7 hours. I'm perfectly okay with that, especially since I got those new noise canceling headphones for Mother's Day or Father's Day. Leave that part out. But it's your choice. As soon as your chores are done, you can resume having fun. Short and sweet. Okay. Now, I really prefer this approach, but you have to use different approaches for different situations and different kids. If you're always doing the tough approach, then something's probably wrong. So mix it up. If you never use the tough approach, then you probably don't have a strong willed child or you're afraid to be tough. So practice that. If your kids are a little older, give them ownership of their chore list. Get some poster board and order a couple pizzas for a work session. Hey guys, here's the list of everything that needs to be done in our home every week. You'll notice that your mom and dad do almost everything, but there are 6 or 8 activities you need to be responsible for. We want to give you a chance to divvy up the chores yourselves and create your own plan for who does what. You could change it up every week or every month or rotate chores. So you guys come up with a plan. You're giving your kids some ownership. Now, if they can't come to an agreement, you can guide them and problem solve with them, or you could just assign the chores for them. Now, if you have a strong willed child, this may happen, and I love it. That strong willed child who is a little more bossy is probably going to do this. They're going to pay one of his siblings to do some of his chores and then manipulate, persuade, influence the more compliant people pleaser sibling to do the other ones. And your response is going to be, "Well, that's not fair. You can't do that." Well, I disagree. This is perfect training for the real world. And this is the conversation I'd have with each of those kids. With a strong willed child, "Oh man, look, I get it. You don't like doing boring chores, but you are good at earning money and you used your strategic thinking skills to problem solve. And so you decided to pay your one sibling money to do your chores. That's called delegation. One day you are going to own your own business and delegate undesirable tasks because God knows you're not going to last long in a corporation because you don't like authority figures." Leave out that last part. But so you can live look, you can always think the sarcasm, just don't say it or email me with it. I love it. But they're probably going to own their own business one day. And so I also say to them, "Hey, because you are so good at reading people, by the way, that's why they're so good at pushing your buttons. You persuaded your other sibling to do your other chores for you. That's brilliant. Well, but what about that poor sweet child who gets taken advantage of, the people pleaser?" I want to make sure this is what I would say to them. I want to make sure that you're good with this deal. If you want to do this for your brother because you get satisfaction from completing tasks and you enjoy cleaning and you have a big heart, well, then go for it. But if you're afraid you're being mean or think you're going to hurt your brother's feelings or dread his reaction, well, then let's practice how to say no because I don't want you walking through life getting controlled and manipulated by other people And I don't want you feeling like you always have to tiptoe and manage everybody's emotions. Moms, how many of you can relate to that, right? So let's practice saying no and being assertive about what you want. And I would actually role play, physically practice saying no and stating exactly what they want. I want your more compliant kids to know they aren't being mean if they say no or establish a boundary. I want them to get comfortable being assertive about their own needs. Again, how many of you struggle with that and you're a grown adult, right? So I want them to be comfortable with being assertive about their own needs without being responsible for trying to keep the peace or manage everybody else's emotions. You know how debilitating this can be. And just be aware that if one parent can't control himself or herself or is overbearing, kids often lose their authenticity and their individuality just trying to get a parent's acceptance or just trying to avoid their wrath. So give your kids the words to say. So this is what the more compliant child could say. No, I'm not doing your 2 chores for free. I will do them for X amount of money or in exchange for you doing this for me. See, that's good practice and a healthy way to establish boundaries and state clearly what works for you. I like that a lot because you're actually teaching your kids life skills and you're practicing them. Okay, what about kids who really resist doing what you ask?
So I love getting messages that aren't about parenting. A mom said, "We are on a 3-week road trip this summer with 4 kids. Yes, we're playing your parenting programs because the kids think they're learning our secrets. But what has helped a ton is the Cure hydrating packets. The kids love, and occasionally fight over, the different flavors, and they are amazed we keep letting them have Cure. We didn't tell them they're healthy, so they think they're drinking something loaded with sugar when there's none in there. Cure has saved us tons of money because they're not begging us for sodas and sports drinks. Our strong willed son, of course, will only drink the adult flavors. And they even take them into restaurants to mix in the water. That's awesome. Look, if you need to resupply on the road, you can now get Cure at Target. Or get 20% off at curehydration.com with code CALM. That's curehydration.com, code CALM. So this is our second summer out here, and what we have missed most is having friends over for dinner. It's such a pain to go to those big box stores and carry home huge items. So we went to wayfair.com. We picked out deck furniture, a grill, fire pit, and yard games. Boom, easy, fast, free shipping. Last night was kind of magical and it was simple. We had friends over for a dinner outside with the fire pit going, kids playing cornhole, just good conversation and laughs. We like Wayfair because it's one-stop shopping for everything we need inside and outside our home with prices that fit our budget. So now after a long day or on weekend mornings, we have an outdoor gathering space. Ready to upgrade your home for way less? Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home and get your space ready for less. That's WAYFAIR.com.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
I bet your family is like ours. During summer, life gets so busy we don't always have time to grocery shop or cook. Thanks to HUNGRYROOT, we shop on our own schedule and make healthy home cooked meals in less than 10 minutes. HUNGRYROOT eliminates the indecision, those last minute runs to the store, or settling for expensive carryout, and replaces that with healthy, delicious meals that even your picky kids will love, and they'll even make it on their own. Tonight, we devoured the General Tso's chicken with green beans. Delicious meal, 8 minutes of prep time, no waste, simple cleanup, more time to spend outside. You're going to love HUNGRYROOT as much as we do. For a limited time, get 40% off your first order, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/calm and use code CALM. That's hungryroot.com/calm, code CALM to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life.
So let's make it a challenge. I love this. It's one of my favorite strategies for getting strong-willed kids to do anything. So make it harder. When we had all those kids at our camps in our home, they all had chores to do around our house. So I'd say, hey, Bet you can't do that blindfolded or backwards. Some kids would put the broom behind their back and between their legs to sweep. It was annoying, but they did it. Not well, but they did it. I once challenged a girl named Morgan with this. I was like, look, the crumbs need to be off the floor in the next 12 minutes. I don't care if you slither like a snake and eat them off the floor or use a broom, up to you. And of course, she chose to be the snake. It was gross, I know, but she wasn't my kid. The point is, make things a challenge because that stimulates their brains. Hey, here's a cool one. I bet you can't come up with some new way to do this that I've never thought of because now you're playing on those traits they have of being creative and using ingenuity and innovation. Or, hey, why don't you do this in the most irritating way you can? I don't care. Just get it done. Now, here's the one that I really, really like. It's a very realistic approach with a strong willed child. You've heard me say that Casey was virtually useless as a kid in our home, but he always thrived more in the adult world, and chores were a constant battle. So we stepped back and asked, okay, what is our goal here? Well, we want to raise kids to be responsible in the real world, not to be kids for the next 60 years. We discovered that we were limiting this to some rigid list of chores inside the home. So we expanded our boundaries and options for being responsible. If you have a strong willed child, you're just going to have to do that. So it's that balance between, well, do I just make them do it the way I want it done? No. Well, I guess he doesn't have to do anything or she doesn't have to. We let them get away. It's neither of those. I say, no, I'm going to give my child some ownership, but I'm just going to make my boundaries and options a little bit bigger. So quickly, from the age of 12, Casey worked outside the home. He began by officiating hockey games at the local rink. He had to get up early on weekends, show up on time, fill out his game card, work hard with parents yelling at him from the stands, which he was kind of used to because I used to yell at him. He had to be accountable to and communicate with a boss. He was extremely conscientious there in ways he never was in school or at home. And I remember telling him, hey, tell your boss you will officiate any game that other people don't want to. And then that way you're going to earn more shifts and money. And he did. The money he earned and then invested in Apple stock back then actually became the down payment on his home 18 years later. And look, that was great discipline by him. Why? Because he was entrepreneurial. He was money motivated. So you just have to watch this for your kids. In other areas of his life, picking up things, schoolwork, was he disciplined? No. But showing up for a real job, managing money, extremely disciplined. And that carries through till today. So Casey would go visit this elderly couple down the street. He'd do chores for them. They loved him. He was being responsible and respectful and serving other people. Those are great traits. We would feed the homeless every Friday night in downtown Nashville. So Casey would be responsible for lugging 24 packs of water, putting together little gift bags. He learned how to cook for them, and he was good at it. So we said, hey, why don't you be responsible for cooking a meal one night a week for us? So instead of just doing regular chores, we gave him other ways to be responsible. And he's actually a fantastic cook to this day. He was also a physical sensory kid, so instead of doing indoor chores, he would spread mulch and dig holes and mow the lawn. Not very well, because he'd leave those little strips of grass like a mohawk on my lawn. And of course, at first, I was like, if you're going to do the lawn, you've got to do it with excellence like I do. And I was like, okay, I do it because I own the home and I'm 40. We're talking about a 12-year-old kid. So expand your boundaries with strong-willed kids. Look for other ways they can serve other people, because many of your kids, they have big hearts toward others, and be responsible. Otherwise, you'll simply fight and be irritated for 18 years. And it just isn't going to look like you always imagined it would, and that's okay. Keep the bigger picture in mind, not just trying to check off parenting boxes or do it the way your parents do it. Well, what about the other kids, right? You raise your kids according to their nature. Some people like checking off the boxes and doing chores. It gives them a sense of accomplishment, right? Well, your brother does, because they're going to ask, well, what about him? He doesn't do chores. I'm like, well, your brother does his chores for the old couple down the street. Do you want to do that? And your other kids are going to be like, no, because they kind of smell. They're old people. And I was like, good. Okay, then just do what works for your family. I want to share an amazing example of how life works with a strong-willed child. Most people would not get this, but you will, because many of you have this child. So a couple from Minnesota emailed this story. They said, we were both raised to do as you were told by our parents. We're both very orderly, conscientious people. And so we thought we'd raise our kids like this and it would be a snap. And then along came our strong-willed son, upended our lives. We tried the traditional approach and were at our wits' end when we found your podcast. It was like you were describing our daily life. We've made some good changes and finally got the programs with the Christmas and July sales. So we were immediately tested by this child. So we just had a large family gathering at our very Nordic parents' lake house. So when I read that, I can think like very orderly, rigid kind of people, and wonderful too. And so one night it was announced we were going to make s'mores. Well, our strong-willed ADD son didn't want to do them the normal way by the campfire. Everyone was trying to get him to participate and comply, and we saw where this was heading. In the past, it would have turned into a huge power struggle with tears and an outburst and us looking like the bad, weak parents in front of our entire family. And you know how that is. You go to your child, like, please, just please do what everybody else is doing. Could you please not make a big fuss tonight? That's not what happened this time. So my regimented, orderly, by the book accountant husband, I love that description, who listens to your programs daily for his own sanity, jumped into action. And he said, hey, Noah, do you think you can use that creative, ingenious brain of yours to figure out a different way to do s'mores faster than everybody else? And the mom said, you should have seen our son's eyes light up. He and my husband ran into the house, and my husband said it was amazing. Our son hollowed out a huge marshmallow with his thumb because he's a really sensory kid. And then he filled it with crushed graham cracker crumbs. Again, very sensory. And chocolate chips. And then he microwaved it for 15 seconds and kind of created a s'mores bowl. He came running back to the campfire to show everyone what he'd done. And a couple of his cousins wanted him to show them how he did it. For the first time, he was like the cool, celebrated mad scientist. So, did he do s'mores the right way by the campfire? No. Did he end up feeling like a creative genius his cousins looked up to for once? Absolutely. That small little change from my husband correcting him or trying to convince him to do it like everyone else to giving him that challenge completely changed the entire night. And our son beamed that whole night instead of feeling left out. He told us afterward it was his favorite vacation ever, and he wants to begin learning more about science experiments. See, that is beautiful. And it took one little shift, not an easy shift, but one little shift from the dad in this situation to go from the whole night blowing up and once again the child on his own feeling like a loser, everybody picking on him, to him feeling confident and now saying, hey, I want to figure out some other science experiments. See, those little switches make a big deal. So well done, regimented accountant dad, for having the courage to let your son do it a different way, even though you might get judged by your Nordic family. How cool is that? Look, if you have our programs, well, listen to them with your kids over the summer so you can make these changes now. If you don't, take advantage of the Christmas and July, you know what I'm saying, sale. If you need financial or other help, just email Casey, C-A-S-E-Y, celebratecalm.com, and he'll help you. Okay, keep being awesome parents and enjoy your kids. Much respect to you all.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace.
Last year, I went through many different life changes. I needed to take a pause and examine how I was feeling in the inside to better show up for the ones who need me to be my best version of myself.
When you're navigating life's changes, Talkspace can help. Talkspace is the #1 rated online therapy, bringing you professional support from licensed therapists and psychiatry providers that you can access anytime, anywhere.
Living a busy life, navigating a long-distance relationship, becoming a first stepfather, Talkspace made all of those journeys possible. I could speak with my therapist in the office. I could speak with my therapist in the comfort of my home. I was never alone.
Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance, no problem. Now get $80 off your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Evening. Buyer's remorse. Buy a new car? I'll be moving in. Let's get started.
Sorry, I think there's been a mistake. I bought it from Carvana.
You what?
Yeah, great price. I even have 7 days to love it or return it.
So there's no...
No buyer's remorse. More like buyer's rejoice.
I guess I'll let myself out. Congratulations. I mean it.
Buyer's rejoice. Buy your car today on Carvana.
Limitations and exclusions may apply. See our 7-day return policy at Carvana.com.